Remember, reports emerged that US President Donald Trump had drafted a letter to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and even showed it to Republican lawmakers. Now, the markets didn't take it lightly. The dollar index slipped, gold prices jumped, and investor anxiety surged. Now, within hours, Trump walked it back, saying firing Powell was highly unlikely unless there's fraud. Now, Trump wants lower interest rates and Powell isn't playing the ball. That's why the president has reignited this long-standing feud. But the bigger question is, can he actually do it?
Absolutely, Vedna. So that's the bigger question that we're going to be asking on the show this evening. And of course, we have a panel of guests who will be joining us and we'll be putting that question because that is the bigger question that we're asking on the show. Can Trump legally fire Powell? Well, legally saying firing the Fed chair isn't straightforward. The United States law only allows the removal for clause that means misconduct or on the case of fraud. In fact, if politics starts influencing monetary policy, it's not just the Wall Street that trembles. It is also the foundation of the dollar's global dominance that also trembles. And ladies and gentlemen, that's been one consistent policy of the Trump administration. The Donald Trump administration has consistently stated that anyone or any country that tries to find an alternative to the dollar or tries to weaken the dollar is going to be hit with sanctions. And of course, in particular, he has threatened sanctions on the BRICS countries as well. So of course, that point needs to be kept in mind as well. But let's first go across to my colleague Roshni, who's standing by on what this is going to mean for the markets and can legally Donald Trump fire the Fed chair.
On 16 July, reports surfaced that President Donald Trump has drafted a letter to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and even showed it to House Republicans. The market slumped, dollar index slipped, and gold futures shot up. Soon, Trump stated that firing Powell was highly unlikely. This was not the first time, though, that such reports emerged. Trump is frustrated because of Powell's refusal to cut interest rates. But here is the big question. Can Trump actually fire the Fed chair? Legally, it's not that simple. Under US law, the Fed chair can only be removed for cause, meaning serious misconduct or fraud. And legally, firing a Fed chair is tricky. In fact, it has never been done in modern US history. And clearly, Trump knows it.
Planning on doing anything, we're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed.
And Jerome Powell, by the way, was first appointed by President Trump in 2017 and reappointed by Biden, and his term as Fed chair officially ends in May 2026. But is able to stay on as a member of Board of Governance until January 31st, 2028 if he chooses to. But firing him now would mean legal chaos, market instability, and direct challenge to institutional independence. And that's one thing investors hate the most. Because if a Fed chair can be fired for political reason, it puts the independence of US monetary policy at risk. And that's a nightmare for institutional investors. Pension funds, banks, hedge funds, they all rely on the predictability and continuity of Fed policies. If the Fed is seen as politically controlled, bond market become volatile and rate expectations can shift erratically. Foreign investors may lose trust in US economic stability, and the US dollar weakens and market confidence takes a hit. This is why ever a rumor of Powell's firing was enough to send markets into a tailspin. Trump loves chaos, but never advanced economies are not immune to political and economic uncertainty.
Thanks very much, Roshni, for putting that story into perspective. So, ladies and gentlemen, the big question that we're asking on the show tonight, Trump's love for chaos, whether he will fire Powell or will he not fire Powell? And most importantly, is the MAGA base in the United States, is it resonating with Trump's policies, or Trump's policies are resonating with the MAGA base? To discuss those and many other points, we're now joined by Vibhuti Jha. He's an ex-Republican candidate for the New York Assembly. Thank you very much, Mr. Jha, for joining us here on ET Now. First things first, what is your interpretation of Donald Trump's comments? He has hinted previously as well at the removal of the Fed chair, but yesterday he stated categorically that he's not looking at firing the Fed chair. So do you think that he is laying the groundwork for that to happen? Mr. Jha, if you could
Thank
please
you.
unmute and then
Yes,
respond.
yes, I just did. I just realized that my first few sentences just walloped in a chaos. So thank you, Samira and Nivedana, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with you guys and talking about Jerome Powell. I have never thought that United India ET now will talk about Fed Reserve's chairman being fired. So coming to the topic is very important, like you said, is Trump enjoying the chaos? And I'm 100% sure he's not. Nobody likes chaos. Markets don't like chaos, as you pointed out recent just now. But what is important here is that how Trump is trying to fix the problems that beset American economy, American political system, American social order, and aided and abetted by technology. So these are all significant elements in political decision making. How social, technology, economics, and politics combine to force a decision one way or the other. Mr. Trump definitely believes that the economy, for it to not fall into recession, because of so many belt tightening that he is doing to curb the enhancement in trade deficits, as well as to protect the supremacy of dollar. So he wants to keep the interest rates lower. And Fed chairman is not agreeing with that. Now, it
The
is true that,
fundamentals of the law, Mr.
sorry?
Especially to undermine an institution like the Federal Reserve for political convenience. If you want me to repeat that, Mr. Jha, Nivedana here, given the fact that, what you're pointing out, the way this is being done by challenging the fundamentals of the law and to also undermine an institution like the Federal Reserve for political convenience.
No, it is
What do you
not
make of that?
undermining. Let's be clear about one thing, the way the American political system operates. The various heads of departments, they have constitutional protection so that the checks and balances between the executive, legislature, and judiciary operates in a sync so that nobody dominates the other one. But there is a convention and a culture in America that if there is a significant difference of opinion between the president and any particular person, they voluntarily choose to step down because economy cannot become victim of the personality clash of two people, whether it is driven by institution or driven by the presidential authority. So I don't think he's going to fire. He loves the word to fire, but he is not going to fire. All that he's trying to do is to maintain the momentum for the economy to tighten its belt in an extreme fat loss program to curb deficits, spur economic growth, because Trump is an economy guy. He totally enjoys the fact that if America becomes stronger, that's the way the system operates in America. It's the economic strength of America that gives its all the other corollary to the political strength and everything else. And that's what Trump is trying to do, because America is a remarkably asset-rich country. And it is not managing the assets well has led to this kind of a scenario we all know. For example, the dollar is weakening primarily because technology has created significant amount of payment and trade settlement mechanisms. As you know, UPI is going to be accepted in so many countries, and it is likely that we NRIs may be able to use UPI. So think about the payment mechanisms where it need not have to be through the government mechanism or the banking mechanism. So lots of old patterns are falling apart, and Trump is trying to make sure that we take advantage of the technology leap that is happening. And if the interest rates are high, so right now, one of the biggest impact of interest rates is consumer loans. Your automobile buying in this country, automobile is a given matter of fact. It's a part of a necessary element of life. Housing, you can't afford housing build up because if the interest rates are high, people are not going to buy it. So this is what is Trump trying to do, is to bring down the interest rates because inflation is at all-time low. Unemployment is not so bad. It's doing all right. And he wants to protect dollar. That's the ultimate thing, because if de-dollarization in the form that alternate methods of trade and payment settlements will come about, no doubt about it, dollar's primacy will definitely decline. Therefore, he is becoming desperate on that account. How right or wrong he is, I do not know. But what I do know that America will have to accept that there will be alternatives to dollars, also because of a very significant political move that America has been doing of sanctions. You have heard about EU trying to tell India and BRIC nations that we will sanction you if you continue
Right,
to
sir.
buy. Who in heavens is
Right.
EU to sanction India or any
Right.
other country? I totally oppose that because it's a
Absolutely.
remarkably political tool, imperial and
Absolutely.
colonial mechanism to threaten a country
Right.
from preventing it to buy from wherever it is cheapest available to us. This is what is important. This
Right.
particular economic
Right.
debate is very much
Right,
tinged
sir.
with political manipulations. Yes.
Absolutely, Mr. Jha, that's a very pertinent point that you have made. And of course, you've made the point also about the fact that legally it could be difficult to sort of, make that happen, to fire the Fed chair. But of course, he will probably create those conditions and circumstances in which the Fed chair resigns himself. As of now, we're given to understand that the Fed chair's current term ends in May 2026. But seeing the way he's been functioning, whether it's related to his tariff policies, whether it's related to the comments that he's made vis-a-vis his competitors, and of course now with respect to the Fed chair, has power gone to Donald Trump's head? Is this a calculated strategy to spread chaos?
The word chaos, I love it and I hate it, because there are times when you want to do something, the steps that you take may lead to chaotic scenario. It is very likely. And Trump is desperate to strengthen the US economy. There is no mincing words on that. Mr. Powell will not be fired because there is no scenario in which he can be fired because of misconduct or whatever else. That's not going to happen. What is likely to happen is there is a very nice word called conditions of satisfaction. There is it's highly likely that both of them are operating under a condition of satisfaction which is unsatisfactory for both. So as a result of which, Mr. Trump being the executive head, Mr. Powell needs to understand, where does the president want to take the economy forward? Will it slip into a recession? These are issues which are bothering President Trump. Mr. Powell, maybe he's a Federal Reserve chairman. He must be looking at the technical aspects of it. And
Right,
technical
sir.
aspects of it is different than the political
Right, sir.
calculation, because you have elections coming in a few next year and the 2028. So this is what is important, that
Right.
economy needs to
Right.
become stronger. And chaos will happen. I mean, I'm
Right.
100% sure about that. Whenever you do take tough actions,
Right.
chaos will be
Right,
the
sir.
outcome. The question is, how do you handle that? Yes.
Right, but do you think that Donald Trump and his administration are handling the chaos well, given the fact that he's gone back several times on what he has said? He says something, then implements completely something else with respect to what happened in Iran, for instance, if you see. And of course, on the tariffs front as well, he says that he's going to impose a secondary, set of tariffs on countries that continue to support Russia. He's also stated with respect to, Israel as well. And of course, he's pushed forward that tariff deadline to August 1. Do you think, as somebody who's supported the Republican Party, these policies resonating with the MAGA voter base, and are they resonating with you? Do you believe that Donald Trump actually wants to work for bolstering the American economy?
On the latter part of your statement, whether he wants to bolster US economy, the answer is an emphatic yes, because there is no other alternative to him either. So he is definitely working towards bolstering the US economy. What happens is, in the administration part of it, tariff, I have always believed, as a banker, as an international banker, and having done this work, tariff is a negotiation tool forever. By now, we all know what various countries have been doing with America when it comes to tariff on products and services. So the question is, who is able to push its own agenda deeper? I, for one, have also advised the Republican Party and reached out to Mr. Trump with a message that on agriculture elements, do not force India. What I have also told India, that given the scenario, agriculture cannot be compromised. You do not want the GMOs entering the country. Instead, India must have a clear-cut policy that India wants to become the organic food basket of the world. Why not? These are tariff is a negotiation tool. That's why you are looking at it that he's deferring the dates, and that's part of the game. So it does create uncertainty. I totally agree with you. And markets do not like uncertainty. That also we know. So the question here is whether the tariff thing will be a negotiated settlement, to what extent. So we have known what is happening between India and the US. But in the case of US versus China, Russia, I can bet my life on it that there will be mutually created conditions of satisfaction, because that's my favorite phrase. You have to create in business and politics a scenario of conditions of satisfaction. What must you do that is acceptable to me, to both entities? It's not compromise. It's creating a condition of satisfaction. That's very different than compromise. Compromise is a dangerous word. In my opinion, you cannot have a compromise between 2 drops of poison and a gallon of milk. Nobody will drink that, can you? But you have to have a condition of satisfaction, no poison in milk. That's what is important to understand the mechanisms of what is happening in the broader
circling
nature
back
of
to
politics.
what you had initially said, that no economy can be a victim of perhaps a difference in power as well. But what do you believe are the larger consequences to, let's say, inflation expectations, rate trajectory, and capital flows as well?
Look, America remains the biggest economy in the world today, even today. America remains, as I have always maintained, do not rule out America's impact on the global economy, because America is a country that is, 3 times larger than India, has 1/4 the population, with reasonably great infrastructure in place, and remarkably asset rich. What you are looking at is a political clash that is happening. So capital flows will happen. They are not going to slow down. But that's where the entire effort to make America great again is to bring manufacturing back to America. I had opined way back in 91 that all these trade agreements like NAFTA and others, they took away the soul of America. Manufacturing, in my opinion, is the soul of every country. Agriculture is the soul of every country. You cannot surrender on these elements where you need to have your own terms and conditions to arrive at a condition of satisfaction. And that's what I believe in, that you draw your line, I draw my line. Let's see who always takes the next step to have a better collaboration to avoid chaos. And that's what is important for us to remember. It's not a fight.
Right, Mr. Jha.
It is always a tough negotiation here going on.
Right. Right, sir. You mentioned about negotiations, but I want to go back to the previous point that you made, Mr. Jha, and you mentioned about the fact that Donald Trump is working indeed for the betterment of the US economy. He wants to bring down the debt. He wants to, of course, also minimize the trade deficit that he has with several countries. But, sir, when you look at the dollar index, this year itself, it has touched several lows. Of course, there are concerns that are related to the slowing down of the US economy. Of course, we are reading reports that consumers are exercising caution when it comes to spending. There are concerns that still persist around inflation as well. And of course, you stated about the tariff policy. Well, the tariff policy, the impact of that is yet to take full effect, given the fact that there's been a push now to the deadline of August 1. How are these policies really working for the betterment of the US economy and not for Donald Trump, the personality that he is?
Look, I would put it this way most humbly to you, that do not get stuck by Donald Trump, the personality. The personalities operate in their own ways. Everybody is different. You, I, Nivedana, everybody, we are all different people. We will do things differently. But what you have to remember that in the case of Mr. Trump, he has inherited a remarkably tricky US economy. I have always said that US suffers from a severe case of financial obesity. The ability of the US economy to maneuver, whether it's interest rates or dollar domination, is very restricted, and Trump recognizes that. A usual politician may not, recognize that element, but Trump recognizes that, and that's why you might see signs of desperation in him. Like he said, I will impose additional 10% on BRICS countries if they try to undermine dollar. He knows it is not going to work. because BRICS combined is 46% of the global economy and significant population, huge market. He recognizes that part, but he can't obviously say that openly. But he definitely recognizes that. So what my point here is very simple, that he will do whatever it takes to protect and defend America. He's totally for America. He's not caring for the rest of the world. That's the impression you and I get. But he also recognizes, as a businessman, as a builder developer, that you cannot live in isolation. And that's what is important for you to understand his mindset. He knows he's going to Ireland or some Scotland to inaugurate his golf club. He's a builder developer. So he wants to have that kind of a thing. He has worked with remarkably disparate elements of people. So he's not anti-business. He's wanting to protect and defend the territory that he has inherited to make it better. And everybody, his voters at least, I do know that. His voters are with him.
Threats, protect and defend the territory, sir, by issuing threats. When you issue threats to BRICS countries, when you issue threats to your allies, you also issue threats to companies who are looking at diversifying their supply chains. They're not alienating the United States. For instance, Apple, he issued a threat to Apple. So can he survive? Can he function by issuing threats?
I would put it this way, don't take the threats as serious. These are the statements made. For example, sometimes somebody makes a polite statement very firmly, and somebody makes the same polite statement very impolitely. The impact of those statements vary. So he's trying to project that he's a tough guy, which he is. But the point is, he also recognizes that you have to collaborate, cooperate, and coordinate to make things happen. Let's not, ignore that part. That as a savvy businessman, he is totally interested in reducing the interest rate so that the borrowings can get better, housing market can get better, consumer purchases can get better. As of now, things are working out all right. But yes, you are right. Average consumer is consuming less these days because, it is very interesting that the credit card business in America, which sustains the economy to a great extent, is charging you interest of 29-30%. So I always tell my clients that if don't spend on credit card unless you have an investment that fetches you 30% return. So this is the warning to the people all over the world that don't take a vacation on credit cards. Don't buy your food with credit card. Use the credit card as your credit facility from a bank. That's what is important. So a lot of things need to be fixed. And we have, in America, we have gone the dollar, what do you call it? The printing ability to print dollars, the tariff, this, what is that word called? The fiat currency. It's coming to bite America. And that's what is important. Like, for example, you heard he's firing people. I mean, look at it this way. In State Department itself, they found there are 4,000 people who nobody knows what they are doing there. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. So Donald Trump as a president has to also think of Americans who are living in that country. And of course, all of these policies will have a bearing on Americans living in the country. He says that there's going to be a short-term blip, there's going to be a short-term pain, but largely it will be fine. How fine it will be with respect to his policies, that only time will tell. Thank you very much, Mr. Jha, once again for joining us here on ET Now. Do hope to have you very soon on the channel.
Thank you very much. I'm encouraged to talk with you guys. Thank you.